For today's Essential Heretics 101 feature, we talk with former co-founder and executive coach Adam Weber about power dynamics, identity transformation, and authentic culture following acquisition. Adam Weber, so excited to have you here, chief evangelist from 15Five. Your background is incredible. Multiple-time co-founder, started out at Blue Bridge, went over to Amplify as the co-founder of sales, into the chief people officer role at that company before you all got acquired in 2021 by 15Five. Board member on the side, executive coach, and as we just said, avid podcaster, three of us here. Really, really excited to have you. Love your stuff. Love your posts on LinkedIn. Some spicy things to get into from your point of view. And maybe just start out with the acquisition and how you jumped into 15Five and what that was like.
Oh, well, thanks, Kelly. Nice to be here. So excited to join you all. 3 podcasters. We could make this like a 9-part series. You know, like being an entrepreneur and founding tech companies was really like it's one of those moments in my career I know I'll look back on just with like a lot of fondness and also a lot of intensity. I learned so much about myself. I actually, if I think about who I was when I started it to the end, it was like every unresolved childhood thing that I hadn't worked through got exposed. And usually in some moment of like poor leadership that kind of through that, I sort of both fell in love with leadership, and then part of Amplify, which we coach leaders on how to build high performance cultures, was like, I really got to marry like the work I did and the company like all represented the same thing.
I'd actually love to understand the evolution too.
Yeah.
So you come in as a founder, you've been calling all the shots. Yeah. Now all of a sudden you're inside of a business in which you're not calling all the shots anymore. So talk to us about the evolution there.
Okay, so first, I'll tell you a really humbling moment that happened early where I realized like what role power actually looks like in practice. I was in initially with the acquisition, they kind of merged the 2 executive teams. We're all in the room together, and obviously 15Five acquired us. Like it wasn't the other way around, you know? And I thought I said something like super smart in a meeting, and then we just kind of like moved on. Like everybody just moved on. And I was like, what was that? I just didn't realize, and it made me immediately, as opposed to feeling like hurt in any way, it was more like, one, okay, what I share has to actually be good now. Like what I share has to actually be good. And 2, how many dumb things did I say that everyone just went along with? Now I got like really self-conscious, like, oh gosh, I guess I wasn't always saying the best thing in the room. It was a pretty humbling moment in that respect. And then, you know, if you think about my role today, it really is a continuation of just something I've seen in the HR space. I didn't mean to get into HR.
You talk to a lot of HR leaders, and I think HR is going through one of the biggest changes it's gone through in the last 10 to 15 years. HR leaders have to do more with less. There's a ton of scrutiny on their headcount in addition to their budgets. And I think there's an overwhelming wisdom from tech CEOs, at least, that you know, they haven't been focused on the right things, that they haven't been focused on business outcomes, that they've been pushing things into the business that they don't want. What are you seeing and hearing from HR leaders as they navigate this moment?
I definitely feel like it is a moment, like a genuine inflection point that's happening. It's like on the one side, it's like HR leaders for years have been like fighting to gain a seat at the executive table, to earn their voice. And in a lot of ways, that has been expedited. Like people now, like executive teams are expanding what they expect out of the function. But it coincided at the same time that every dollar is being scrutinized inside of businesses. And so a function of HR has dramatically changed in the last couple of years, without increasing staff dramatically and without increasing budget dramatically. And so it's a really interesting juxtaposition. It's like, hey, this is your moment right now, and you're burnt out yourself, your staff is flat, your budget's flat, but go ahead and now you have all this new responsibility. So innately, the challenge is like non-trivial. Too much of old HR, or administrative HR as I call it, was like off in a silo. Executives always viewed it as like kind of mandatory, like, or confusingly mandatory. Like the HR person's like, oh, we have to do it this way, but without giving other business context, and they build their strategy detached from the business strategy. It just didn't feel integrated in the business. Whereas now, if you have limited resources, you are being tasked with expanded responsibilities. and they actually want you to be woven into the fabric of the business. It's the inverse. It's we build our strategy aligned to the company strategy, and everything we communicate goes through that top level company strategy.
I wanted to talk about like what that means. It is a kind of a phrase now to connect things with the business. And I'm not talking about know the revenue, know how this engine connects. Like understand how the go-to-market team is connecting with the marketing team, is connecting with how we ship products. Like I still don't think we have an innate understanding and how the wheels of the engine connect all around. It's not good enough just to be able to spit out financial numbers. And
Right.
I'd love to double click on what you all think about, knowing the business, because I feel like that's a catchphrase now. And I don't know that everyone knows exactly what the hell that means day to day.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And everybody listening also is in a different place too,
Yes.
right? Like what level of depth we're talking about. But fundamentally, do you know deep in your bones how this business makes money? Like, could you articulate it in a way that the CEO and you would say, yep, we're on the same page with that? The second then is, can you quickly name the 3 most important things that the business is focused on right now that are unique to this one moment? And then the third is, on the executive team, I'm sure you both have onboarded new places. You're like, holy acronym. Like there is a lot of language that is specific to each individual business. And have you done that work? And so like, if you were just literally had a sheet of paper in front of you and you were listening, it'd be like, I would just write down like, the business makes money this way. This is the most important thing. The business right now is focused on these 2 to 3 things, and they're top company priorities. And then kind of the common language used to express these top 2 things. And if you have clarity on those, then you go, I build my HR strategy tied to those. And now you can debate. This is why you can debate, I guess.
I'd submit another one, which is you have to be able, you have to get to the lowest level of detail. And this is where I think the biggest gap is between business leaders and HR leaders today. Business leaders are operating in the business and they're actually doing the work of growing revenue. Or in an operations business, my favorite example is at DoorDash. Every month, every DoorDash employee has to go dash. And holy shit, do you learn a lot about the business when you get in that car, you go pick up that food from the restaurant. It's 15 minutes that you waited there. You get to the house. Mom has screaming kids behind her because they're starving and you're late. And you have a ton more empathy for how the business operates. And so I think that's another thing I would add. I totally agree with your list, but I would add the other one, which is like, go do the job of the business. Like take a week and actually like go sell the product. Go sit with the engineering team or go sit with the product team while they're working to understand how they're actually operating things. And then when you come with your HR strategy, you could tell a story about how what you learned during that week is now informing your HR strategy and why the business should push it through.
This will be fun. I'd love your all's reaction to, because I've heard this many times, I'm sure you have too. This job of HR, people have said, I don't know how you do it. It's the worst. It's the hardest. There's so much going on. You're literally drowning every day. You're doing, multiple things at once, times 100, times limited resources. It is so much that many business leaders don't even know how much is going on, like underneath the ocean line of the iceberg. And now I have to learn your fucking business on top of it. I have to do all this stuff. Like, I'm just being real because it is a lot of rocks in the backpack. And I do think it's somewhat, I don't know if I'd use the word unfair, but it's also the fucking reality. And I think if you're going to be in this job, you got to figure out a way to do it all or you're not going to be successful. And that's just how it is. And I'd love your reaction because I think both those things are true. It is unfair. It is a fucking lot and we must do it.
And then, so it is a lot. It just is. It's a hard job. And I don't think it's like reasonable to act like it's not. There's a reason that burnout, all the stats are what they are inside of HR and people have talked about it to death. But there is also, just to be real, there is also an innate tendency inside of HR to have a superhero mentality versus a delegator mentality where it's like, I can take on everything. And so I think just basically it's already hard enough. You have to be very good at radical prioritization. You have to be good at delegation. And you have to be willing to say no to things that feel like pressing fires. And the thing that's so hard about HR compared to other functions is that the pressing fires are not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to say no to. Whereas other functions, like, nah, hey, got to stay laser focused. We're doing this project. I actually think HR leaders need more of that, need to do that more often, to hear, to empathize, but then to also believe in their own strategy enough that they stay focused on their strategy.
Yep.
Hey, everyone. We'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. AI changes how work gets done. Recruiting is no exception. Metaview is the AI platform purpose-built for recruiting. If you're looking to level up your AI adoption and see real impact from intake to offer, it's a no-brainer. Metaview's suite of AI agents works for you at every stage of the hiring process. Their platform powers instant job post creation, AI-powered candidate Q&A, insights on pipeline performance, compensation, and so much more. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in candidate debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes all of that. For every candidate in every pipeline, bring radical efficiency and precision to your hiring process with perfect data from every conversation. Metaview covers all of your compliance needs, works with all of your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at more than 3,000 elite companies like Brex, Deel, 11 Labs, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Just head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts or get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes. I'm curious your take, Adam, just with the product you built and at 15.5 and your plight and your mission. One of the trends I'm seeing or think I'm seeing and hearing is there's more on the AI automation, right? Systems, scale, do more with less conversation, especially in this macro of survival and a lot of pressure, financial pressure, et cetera. I'm hearing a lot less on developing leaders, L&D. We've talked about DEI getting slashed. I'm just like, that was the jam 6 years ago. It was like high touch, white glove. And I feel it's just like gone. And I might be wrong, but that's the sentiment I'm getting. And it scares me a little bit. And I just would love your guys' reaction on that.
Leadership development, like, I've said this, running an engagement company, literally over 1 million data points of surveying and assessing, there is nothing that impacts companies more negatively than untrained managers. Like, it is a chaos creator of proportions. It is a dramatic productivity performance killer.
Could not agree more.
And so it's like, well, here's why you can buy time. Here's the common story that happens with a manager and like why you think it works for a short period of time. And then they're going to have the rude awakening, Kelly, that you're referring to. A top performer gets promoted to become a manager, top individual contributor. They take over. They immediately start doing all of their new direct reports jobs. They were very good at it, so it looks like it's working. They're not learning the actual learned skill of management. They get overworked and stressed, can't hold that capacity, blow up on their team. They start showing erratic behavior. They are frustrated that they have to do all the work even though they haven't learned proper management skills, right? And then that happens at scale inside of an organization. Total chaos.
Yes, totally.
What's interesting is you're hearing success stories. So to take the other side, Jensen Huang, who's the CEO at NVIDIA, has famously 50 direct reports. He doesn't do one-on-ones. Now, I'm sure those people all have like a coach and he's throwing money at the problem, right? Which is a different way to solve it. But like, when I think about what does the future look like, and when other CEOs hear that story and see NVIDIA's success, I think that the story they're telling themselves is like, why the fuck am I doing one-on-ones? Like, why don't I have more people to report directly to me? Why do we need these layers of managers who are only people managing? I actually want more doers. Adam, to your story, right? Of like, no, let's actually invest in the IC track and never have to flip that person over to management. That's my take on what's going to happen in the future. And I think as we talk about L&D, a lot of the L&D conversation is always around manager training. And I get it. It makes sense. Like that.
Yeah.
That's where we have invested a lot of the time and the energy. I think where it's going in the future is what we were talking about earlier with AI is like, can we get these individual contributors, the actual doers' skills? Can we invest in those people without having to invest in their managers, who are sometimes considered overhead in a business?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a really, again, not knowing the answer, but you see where this is going with technology. And again, it used to be, how do I build a 50,000 person department and be a hero? And now that's like, you're a loser. You should have less because of technology. You need less oversight, less managers holding people's hands because of tech and AI and skill sets. So maybe that's right, Nolan. I think it will shift dramatically in some respect. And the other thing is, you look at NVIDIA's product and just their success, and that has a lot to do with it. So you have to kind of look at more than the model, because that's a kamikaze product like a GitHub or whatnot that's just going to win. And so if you don't have that in a company and they try and do that, it could be a little backfire. But I don't know. It's a good conversation.
Here's what I'll say. I like how spicy that take was. Like that felt like the level of heat we were looking for right there, Nolan. I liked that. I was like, I was even listening going, well, this is fresh. That's fresh. One part that I really agree with is the celebrating of individual contributors. Like it bothers me so much that individual contributors that are really the heartbeat of a company, and whether or not a company can execute, feel like they get to a limit of their success, as opposed to going, there are ways to tier this, like ways to go, hey, you are valued, this role matters, and it can matter for a long time. Like, it's not like you're some failure in your career because you enjoy being an individual contributor. Said the individual contributor over here who used to be a manager.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, both
Celebrate
of you guys.
Me.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Shopify just rolled out this mastery program, which Kelly and I have laughed about because we don't actually know what the fuck it means. But what we think it means is like really investing in individual contributors and rewarding the mastery as they continue to gain experience and excellence in their craft, and rewarding the craftspeople versus rewarding the managers. And I would just submit to HR leaders who listen to the show, because you do have to kind of pick one. You have limited resources. Are we investing our very limited L&D into our managers? Or are we going to invest our very limited L&D resources into our ICs? And I would just say, I know we've always thought about it as managers. I think you'd be crazy not to prioritize the ICs today, because that's where I see where the puck is going.
And I will add that I don't know if a lot of people managers will complain about that. I don't know about you all, but we just had a survey says moment in our latest episode. Like, if you surveyed 100 managers, I bet you 80% would be like, if I could make the same amount of money as an IC, I'm out. Like, I don't think that they will be too upset about that, is what I'm saying, moving forward. So maybe all these things converge in a good way down the line.
Well, it's an experiment, right? And that's the thing is, Kelly and I have talked about this a bunch on the pod, is I think the other thing that the best HR leaders are doing today is they're ruthlessly experimenting, and they're open to trying, and they're very open to failing and taking the learnings from the failures and applying it to the next experiment. But like I think there's a desire to look in the rear view mirror and be like, well, that's the way it was done before. And so like, let's just keep doing it that way. And that message is not resonating with anybody at the executive team anymore.
I just wrote I have a post scheduled, so it'll probably be out by the time this happens. But this whole concept of people who go into orgs who've been like, oh, this is how we've done it in the past. Like, businesses are so dynamic, so individually unique. I just don't buy that. It's not dismissing wisdom. I think there is wisdom you can take from other situations. There's a learning tax to people who haven't had experience, all that. I get all that. But I just do not buy when someone's like, oh, nope, this is what you do. It's just, each situation is just too dynamic, especially in the world that's like changing really quickly. I just don't, it just feels dated.
I agree. That is changing so fast. And I've never heard people shit on the term best practice more than I've heard it in the last like 8 months. I think that it's going to become an obsolete term. I completely agree with you, Adam.
One thing I want to go back to real quick, because Nolan, you said this, and I think it's so true on failing. I think part of when I was that top 5% of HR leader, part of what you're trying to do is build this flywheel where if you're in a cycle where you hear no a lot, and you feel like you're constantly relegated into the old administrative side. It's like, speak the language of the business, you use data to back up your ideas, you show courage when you're pitching, you activate through the managers. But then the last part is that you share back. And part of that sharing back is both wins and losses, right? It's like, we take some bets every now and then, but what we're not going to do is, one, we're not going to undersell, which this happens a lot in HR, I think, is like HR leaders too often undersell the impact of their work. We're not going to undersell our work. If we do great work, we're going to be great internal communicators, maybe even take the whole function under us, which is be my preference. And we're going to say, hey, here's the impact we had. Same token, if we fail, we also build credibility by being real with our failures too. And then when you do that repeatedly, every single time gets easier. Your work starts to get more expansive. You have more access that's inside of the org. That's
and visibility, right? I mean, you're seen and known as a force in the company, not some tinkerer behind the curtain, commiserating and doing weird things that no one knows about. It makes all the difference in the world. We could do a whole podcast on this.
I find that people are good at one. Well, I find that people are good at one or the other. You know, people are usually either really good at like showing their wins and celebrating their wins, or people are usually really good at talking about like what didn't go well and what they're going to apply moving forward. You have to be able to do both, especially in today's world, which is you got to talk about your wins. I'm not good at this. This is not one of my strengths. Talk about your wins and the learnings from your wins, but also have the mental agility and awareness to talk about what didn't work and what we learned from that.
And a simple takeaway for the listener too is every single quarter or whatever your strategy cadence is, that you take the time for yourself to write that out. Highest areas of impact were these two things, and lessons learned were these things. And then just show a little bit of guts and start sharing it. Share it with other people, share it with other executives. You need allies on the executive team, especially like one or two who kind of get your work, see that it matters, it connects to what they're doing.
Really well said. Adam, thank you so much for the time. This was phenomenal.
We definitely threw some fire curveballs, so appreciate
Sorry,
it.
That's kind of my deal.
Sorry, Nolan definitely threw some fire curveballs.
I loved it. That was so good to be with you both.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.